a nice guy. I'm glad Matumbo cares for us. You can't just put a Hitler reference in your video. Oh my god. Maybe you should look in a mirror and realize that you're 3 Zerg in a trench coat. Yeah, no, Reggie and Seth share so much in common. They are both prolific gooners. We all know that in life, there are but a few choices that lead us to the destination of our happiness. Some of us like to indulge in cardboard crack in the form of Pokemon cards. Couldn't be me. Some of us enjoy the simple things, like going on a nice fancy walk. Others of us find our joy in the crippling brain rot of YouTubers who like to pretend like they're common sense people, but then completely hoodwink us by making YouTube videos that make us realize they're actually sociopaths. And if you can tell by that fact, we're going to be watching a Reggie video, specifically called, and I've definitely got this up in the background so I can tell you instantaneously what it is, called I Created a Society of Hivers in Kenshi. Now, I've never seen a Kenshi video, so this is going to be some nonsense. I know of Kenshi, I know the kind of game it is, but I've never seen or played it. So let's sit back and relax and enjoy. And if you are watching this on YouTube, do come by the Twitch streams and join us live so you can be part of the reactions in person. It's time for more Reggie. I love Reggie. This man activates my neurons, and knowing this person, even when he's playing a game about strategy and world building and society shaping, somehow he's going to probably worm this into the most unhinged, nonsensical bollocks I've ever seen. Taking the mechanics of the game and literally running them down to the bare bones and doing the most roundabout ways of capitalizing on intrusive game mechanics that shouldn't work in a way that they end up doing for his benefit. So let's see how he abuses Kenshi, shall we?
Nation is a veritable theocracy that uses their religious principles to violently discriminate against non-human races, and even
that is a very apt way of describing the American government.
Some of the human ones too. Perhaps most of all, the Holy Nation hate the Chinese. I mean the Hivers. They really hate—
Okay, now you're really just reinforcing that this is just America.
the Hivers. That being said, today's challenge is to try to establish a sleeper cell of bugmen living within a Holy Nation city.
When he says bugmen, he actually means Texans. Just keep that in mind.
If you're unfamiliar, a sleeper cell is defined as a group of people who inconspicuously remain dormant in a community until activated by a prearranged signal to perform acts of espionage, sabotage, and/or terrorism. The ultimate goal: abolish the ethno-state by overthrowing the local government with a vermintide of—
Reggie cannot escape the allegations that he is a Zerg. Reggie needs to come out with a face reveal to prove he's not 3 Zerglings in a trench coat. This man tends to go towards Zerg factions in every game he plays, as much as I go towards brain rot in every video that I watch.
Hivers. Let's begin. The first thing any good rebellion needs is a man on the inside. For our purposes, we need someone average, and with—
Average by what standard? Because if we're going by average by British looks standards, that's not true. This man is— in England, this man would be considered Giga Chad. This man would be considered the most handsome person in all of England.
With a good, strong Christian name. I chose Mogumbo. He will function as a relatable everyman that will allow us to gain the trust of the Holy Nation and destroy it from within.
Guys, we all need to avert our eyes. We are not looking. We're not looking. We're not. We're looking away at the potential racial implications here.
Don't be deceived by Motumbo's long limbs.
Anyone else making this would be considered racist.
He is terrible at virtually everything. We will have to train him from the ground up like some kind of feral child that we pulled out of a wolf den. In particular, we need to focus on basic life skills such as—
You guys laugh when I make the joke about using economic comparisons of monetary value. Like, oh, that's £5, so that's what, 12 burgers? Is that how conversion works? £5 British or 12 burgers American?
Sprinting, stealth, lockpicking, and kidnapping. Don't ask questions. My favorite way to do this personally is by harassing the local homeless population. But if I'm going to—
It wouldn't be a Reggie video without completing mass regicide against the homeless. It's literally in his name. Reggie, regicide. Who are we regiciding? The homeless. If they didn't want to get Reggie-sided, they shouldn't have been broke. Duh.
To persecute homeless people, I want it to be official and definitely on the record. Therefore, I decided to hold a local election to determine the president of Hub. Since only Mutombo
Hub. We are one word away from that being the best website in existence.
showed up, I declared it a landslide victory in our favor. Now we could start ruining society the morally correct
America.
way. Our first move was to enact an economic redistribution policy where we redistributed everyone else's stuff directly into...
Now, Reggie's not saying that this video is a political message, but we all know this is a political message of a metaphor about modern society.
...our inventory. We then traded...
including the ability for worms eating our brain.
...these items for the entire city's food supply. This served not only to enrich our caloric...
Oh my God. It's so funny that we're living in a timeline now where we can't make fun of fat Nikocado avocado. Instead, we make fun of skinny Nikocado avocado clickbaiting because he made... You know, Nikocado doing the whole skinny thing is the equivalent of Bella Delphine posting their nudes. They both knew that the second they did that, the mysticism was over. Now that Nikocado's skinny, now that Bella Delphine's post their nudes, they'll never be as popular or have as much interest as when the mysticism of their guys was at its max.
Intake,
especially
but it
judging
also
by
caused our
Nikocado's
citizens
posting
to wither
the moment
and starve.
being very,
Amazing.
very weird.
We then spent the next 2 weeks connecting with our supporters by breaking into their homes late at night to conduct wellness checks.
Wake up. Yeah, it's me, Mutombo.
Hi, Mutombo.
You don't...
Guys, say hi to Mutombo. He's just checking on you to make sure you're still breathing. Thanks,
All
Mutombo.
right, I just came to check on you. Yeah, no,
Thanks,
it's
Mutombo.
okay. It's okay, go back to sleep.
What a nice guy. I'm glad Mutombo cares for us. We should all thank Mutombo for being such a caring politician to look after his understudies in such a caring and dogmatic way.
I like to watch, it's okay.
If any of them got a little too uppity about it, we knocked them the fuck out. After 2 successful weeks of being the president of the largest migrant camp in all of Kenshi, I felt as though I had the necessary skills to become a domestic terrorist. So we set off to join the Holy Nation. Mutombo successfully migrated to Blister Hill. It's the capital of the entire Holy Nation, as well as the place where their leader, Lord Phoenix, lives. So not only are we establishing a sleeper cell in enemy territory, but we're basically doing it in their version of the White House. Now, the first step is to go house shopping to establish our headquarters.
They'll never expect an insurgency on their doorstep. That's smart. See, Reggie wants people to believe that he's so crack-headed and absolutely unfiltered that he would never make such stupid decisions. But he is that unfiltered, that completely batshitted, that terrible decision maker.
Hey, before the video goes any further, I just want to let you know that we have a Patreon, where you can support me, the fantabulous Makari, and get awesome perks for it, such as behind-the-scenes footage, early access, patron-exclusive reactionaries, and voting on future content, and so much more. Or heck, you can even just follow for free to get updates on all the goings-on within the Kari Mansion. With all that being said, thank you very much for listening, and please, enjoy the video.
His decisions are so terrible that no one ever notices them. Because no one would ever be that stupid. Unless your name is Inky and you run a stream called the Kari Mansion.
Fortunately, I pawned everything in the hub that wasn't nailed to the floor, and so money was not an issue. Now, when you're new to the human trafficking business, what you really want is square footage. I concluded that this house here offers the best bang for my buck when it comes to hiding forbidden species from God's eye. Yes, it's a bit of a fixer-upper, but look who's talking. Shalom. We had...
Wow, Reggie. That sounds like inflection. That sounds like you're projecting a little bit. Maybe you should look in a mirror and realize that you're 3 Zerg in a trench coat.
Our first home. Now that this is done, we have to perform what is known as a proof of concept test. You see, before we attempt to smuggle 50 Hivers past border security, we should start with 1, just to make sure it's even possible.
Dude, this is gonna be some bullshit.
So Mutombo set forth into the world to find his first...
You know, if I feel like with a Reggie video, your first Reggie video is always going to be the biggest eye-opening experience. Because nobody really expects somebody to be as unhinged as Reggie. And then your first Reggie video makes you realize, oh wait, I was wrong. Because whatever you think might be the most deplorable thing to do, what you think would be impossible, becomes possible and totally ethically viable and completely not a violation of the Geneva Convention when Reggie does it. But only when Reggie does
recruit. We traveled to the Western Hivelands, where we could surely find an endless supply of potential recruits. The only issue is that recruiting has never been particularly easy in Kenshi. At best, you can recruit...
I know this has nothing to do with the video. I don't know if I'd ever be able to play Kenshi. This is one of those games that for somebody with ADHD would be torture. Too many things to pay attention to. Too many opportunities. This is why people with ADHD need direction. We can only play games that tell us where to go and what to do. Because if we're given the freedom of choice, you can damn well bet your bottom dollar we'll spend the first 52 hours of a 2-hour game collecting pine cones.
Local alcoholics from the tavern. However, that doesn't work for us. We need a scalable solution. To address this issue, we have the Recruit Prisoners mod, which allows us to kidnap people, gaslight them with several hours of psychological torment, and
watching the average Zentraya stream? So, like, we're talking psychological torture to convert them into being domestically viable. So watching Zentraya. Cool.
Eventually convince them to join our party thanks to a neat little mechanic called Stockholm Syndrome. So all we have to do is kidnap and imprison a Hiver. I skulked around the area.
Now, I'm not saying my entire channel lives off of Stockholm Syndrome, but when people came into my stream with free will and then spent the next 5 years in my channel, that's not Stockholm Syndrome. That's just them knowing that there's no better place than being in my clutches. I mean, my mansion. Ignore the fact that they spend dubious amounts of hours in the pit having their brains smoothed out so that the only thing they think about is me. But you know.
For some time, pretending to be mentally ill. This lured the Hivers into a false sense of security.
Pretending to be mentally ill. Who's pretending here, you or me?
And allowed me to get closer to my target. Once he was alone, I hit him over the back of the head with a rock and dragged him into the shadows. One quick
anesthesia. Still a better mode of anesthesia than my local dentist used for me the last time I went to go see them.
Run across the desert, and we were now outside the gates of Blister Hill. I decided to try the simplest approach, which was to just carry his unconscious and bleeding body past the police and into my apartment. I think if it worked for Jeffrey Dahmer, it should also work for me.
Oh my god. I realize that that's so poetic for me at the moment because I've been watching a lot of like crime documentaries, and I only just like in the last year found out about Jeffrey Dahmer, and ever since then the Jeffrey Dahmer quotes have been popping up left, right, and center. Almost like the bodies that Jeffrey Dahmer left behind. Haha, get it?
And just like that, we were in. Motumbo then deposited our first lucky recruit into his very own rusty steel cage. I decided to leave our new recruit in...
Now, if this was a truly, what's the word? This would obviously be like... So when you have slaves, I mean captives, I mean succubites, community members, if you will, it is all well and good indenturing them, but you got to make sure they're comfy. Sure, you give them a rusted prison cell to rot in, but at least give them rope bindings to nibble on so they can have a snack whilst they're slowly being converted to succubitism. Suckism for short.
Darkness for 2 to 3 days, so he could think about all the poor decisions he's made. When we returned, he was more than eager to join the squad. Now we just had to choose a new identity for him. It needed to be inconspicuous and disarming. I settled on calling him Mr. Patel.
Of the Geneva
Sure,
Convention.
Mr. Patel might be Indian, but he's definitely not part of a grassroots terrorist organization. It was perfect. We could now enter phase 2 of our...
Having been watching Scammer Payback recently, it's only fitting that the Indian is the one trying to put in a subversive plant to try and steal your entire civilization from you. It's either that or they're trying to steal your details from your computer to try and scam you.
Our operation, stockpiling supplies. You see, if Motumbo is going to kidnap dozens of Hivers and hide them under the floorboards of his studio apartment, they're going to need a steady food supply. Otherwise, this whole Jeffrey Dahmer parallel might become a little too real. So I elected Mr. Patel to be the head of agricultural development.
Just watched it today,
Mutombo
Basil.
smuggled
It'll be
him
up on
past the
Patreon
city
after
gates
this-
again
after we're done
and
today.
back into the free world to establish a large-scale farming operation. I had a lot of faith in Mr. Patel. I knew he wouldn't do something
Go, Mr.
dishonorable,
Patel,
like
commit
fleeing
various
with all
war
my blood money.
crimes.
Technically, to operate a farm successfully, you're going to want more than one person, but I didn't want to attract too much attention, so I left it all up to Mr. Patel and his army of windmills.
It's
But
not
don't worry,
much, but it's
Mutombo
good
will be
work.
watching very closely. After 22 hours of painfully micromanaging,
Is it bad I know what that game is?
Mr. Patel, I finally felt as though we had a reasonable amount of food stockpiled. Now we could finally return to our real passion of violently coercing people to join our social justice flash mob. In many ways, you could consider what we're doing to be somewhat like a business, and the first step in expanding any business
what
is
the
to
business is
establish
good
a
in is
recruitment office.
trading.
I named ours Abu Ghraib. Technically speaking, it was just a desolate shack in the middle of the desert, but functionally, it would operate as an indoctrination chamber, allowing us to grow our numbers.
You say indoctrination chamber, I call it a tier 3 sub-farm.
Indefinitely. Allow me to demonstrate.
Who wants to be part of the tier 3
goes to the
sub-farm?
Hivelands. He kidnaps and recruits one Hiver. Then both Mutombo and the Hiver go kidnap 2 more Hivers. Then the 4 of
never
them
mind. It's called the mathematics camp. Yeah, this isn't a slave camp. It's a math camp. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = 4. And now we're learning about mitosis.
4 more Hivers, and 8 more, and 16 more. In other words, Mutombo gets hella bitches. Mutombo would then individually smuggle each Hiver into the
Mutombo
city
kinda like
and
me.
deposit them safely in his living room. This would constitute the beginnings of our sleeper cell.
Oh my
However,
God,
about
how many
halfway
does he
through
have
this
in
mission,
there?
I realized
And nobody like, at no point did nobody get curious about the very weirdly smelling building. At no point did someone go, does it smell like little bitches around here? Smells like VTuber, actually. Let's see what's in this building.
2 things. I was running out of space in my apartment, and I forgot to pick up the food from Mr. Patel. Let's solve the easiest problem first. Our lack of space. The solution is quite simple, actually.
I would have thought the solution to the lack of food would have been better. Because if there's 50 people in that room, simply put, 50 take 1 is still a good number. And that 1 would have been a person, but now they're food.
We just need to buy a second apartment. The only road
all
bump in
like
this mission is
conversions, you know what I mean?
finances. Since freelance kidnapping is
People
not yet
converting to
recognized
food
as a job,
equals
Mutombo
yummy.
has technically been unemployed for the past 38 days. As such, we don't have a lot of money. I decided to solve this by invading a sovereign state. Technically, it was just a waste.
You call it a corporate takeover. I call it colonialism.
Station. But that's a good start. I took my army of 30 Hivers to the way station territory and launched a full-scale assault. You may think that an army of naked bugmen may not seem that intimidating, but unless you're some kind of freaky sex guy, then you would be wrong.
No, dude. Is Reggie as much of a gooner as Seth Zintak?
Assault. You may think that an army of intimidating, but unless you're some kind of freaky sex.
Yeah, no, Reggie and Seth share so much in common. They are both prolific gooners. And need I remind you that at one point, Seth Zintak actually tried commissioning me to draw some Rule 34 for that space game he was playing. The only reason it didn't go ahead is because we forgot to communicate, and by the time we got back to each other, the project was done. I, for one, believe that every game, regardless of what it is, needs some kind of fan service.
Guy, then you would be wrong. After pawning all of the worldly possessions from this outpost, we finally had enough money to buy a second apartment to store our Hivers. Now came the more complex problem.
Oh no,
we
not
have
math.
over 30 Hivers, and they need food.
Hello? YouTube? YouTube, why? Stop lagging.
Food. Fortunately, we have the food.
Thank you.
The issue is, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but Motumbo has kind of developed a bit of a reputation due to his eccentric personality, and I'm worried that Mr. Patel could be in danger if he is caught supplying food to Motumbo. So I orchestrated a...
Like, this is the thing that scares me about games like Kenshi. Like, I would struggle to play games like this. Because these games are coded in such a way that even the smallest thing you do can have a ripple effect. And I am always really amazed at how much detail these kind of games can go into. And I know for a fact that with how complicated this game's system is, from that one video that we saw from Seth Zintak, this video probably took weeks of recording.
Complex but believable series of events
it's
that would allow
as
us to
Factorio
transfer the food from Mr. Patel to Motumbo without anyone ever knowing. First, I used my new property to start an illegal money printing operation. This would serve two purposes. One, it would provide us the rest of the money that we would need for our entire playthrough. And two, it will devastate the local currency through hyperinflation, inevitably resulting in the holy nation becoming a barter economy based on sexual favors. We would then use our newfound wealth becoming a barter currency through hyperinflation, inevitably
inflation mentioned, somebody get pyrocynical.
resulting in the holy nation becoming a barter economy based on sexual...
So when Reggie posts a video of face sitting, nobody bats an eyelid. But when I sit on somebody's face, I get banned off of Twitch. Talk about double standards.
Favors. We would then use our newfound wealth to open two seemingly legitimate business ventures. The first would be a rock mining company, and the second a veterinary practice. This will make sense shortly. The rock mining company would logically...
He's gonna stuff people's belly, isn't he? That sounds a bit more suggestive than what I thought it would be. What I mean is he's gonna turn people into mules. He's gonna stuff them so fully woolly of illegal substances and get them to go across the border. How things change the same, they stay the same.
Available trader, which
how things change, so do they stay the same.
Now the rock mining company has our food. This constitutes our first layer of encryption in this...
Nobody starts a veterinary in Kenshi without having the intent of turning into some illegal substrate, shady business of sorts.
Legal food smuggling
especially when it's Reggie. Like, once you've watched more than 1 or 2 Reggie videos, you have to look at every act he does with a certain level of scrutiny. Because any normal person would open a veterinary to help animals. Reggie is not a normal person. Reggie opens a veterinary service to commit crimes.
Unfortunately, shortly after buying the food from Mr. Patel, the pet of one of the rock miners becomes sick. He decides to take his pet to our veterinary practice to diagnose the issue. In fact, the animal is not sick, it's dead. We have hollowed out its insides and filled it with over 800 kilograms of white rice. Now the vet has our food. He will wait until nightfall, at which point he will deconstruct his entire office and sprint across the desert. He will rendezvous at an unmarked beach, ultimately equipping a hazmat suit before swimming 800 feet through acid water to an uncharted island and burying the food under a pile of rocks.
Factorio levels of game abuse.
The vet and everyone that
you remember how at the beginning I told you that Reggie is the kind of person to abuse every game mechanic to the nth degree for the sake of his own cotton gains? Yeah, what did I tell you?
Works at the rock mine will go to a plastic surgeon to legally alter their name and genitals, thus allowing them to vanish into the night like an elderly person with dementia. The next morning, a skeleton will find this food and take it to a nearby town to sell it. After all, skeletons don't need food. This is completely realistic. Shortly after the transaction is complete, I will hire a local schizophrenic man.
Well, it's not that skeletons don't need food, they're just not picky eaters, and sometimes they just choose not to be a burden.
To enter the shop and purchase our food from the shop owner. Following this, the man will proceed to brutally murder everyone inside the store, thus leaving no...
Okay, based reaction when somebody scalps your Pokemon cards. I can get behind that, no problem.
No witnesses to this transaction. Who is this deranged lunatic, you may ask?
Motumbo!
His name is Motumbo. And with that, we have completed the most inconspicuous food transaction in all of human history, thus ensuring the safety and anonymity of both Motumbo and Mr. Patel. I would complete this elaborate series of events once a week, every week, for the rest of the playthrough.
Oh, that's so
Naturally,
elaborate.
I had Motumbo use a different disguise each week to maintain a low profile. Now, with a steady stream of both money and food,
Smart play,
our
Reggie.
kidnapping
Smart play.
operation had truly entered its renaissance. By day 29, we had managed to kidnap a total...
Oh, look at... Hold up. Can we, Yeah!
Hivers up and windows down. Hot pull menu and some quest, drive around and pop.
Didn't realize that the slavers were a bunch of Slav enjoyers. A little bit of Slav base. Very cool, Reggie, very cool. Squatting to assert dominance.
Literally everyone from both of the nearest Hiver villages. At this point, we had to resort to traveling north to kidnap Fogmen. Fogmen are Hivers that got mixed up in some kind of pyramid scheme. I don't know, it's not really clear to me, but they serve a higher purpose now. After reaching a total of 255 Hivers, I decided to stop because I had run out of names 90 Hivers ago. Next began my quest to find housing for my 250
That's no moon, that's an army!
illegal immigrants. It is now time for us to aggressively expand into the real estate market by monopolizing all housing. What's that, Mr. Realtor? You want to know why I need 14 apartments? Fuck you. I decided to purchase almost all of the real estate in Blister Hill and evict the previous tenants. Local homeless...
And at no point did the religious fanatics notice the slow uprising of bugmen.
And unemployment
they were too
was
busy
now approaching
twerking.
100%.
And the clap of their ass
in
cheeks
fact,
was enough
a
to
small
distract them from
confederation
the,
of filthy hobo people began to collect in front of the city in protest of my smooth business
why
moves.
they kind of caked up?
I took this as our first successful move against the Holy Nation and a sign of good things to come for the revolution.
The Holy
With
Nation
255 sleeper agents now.
The Holy Nation cannot cognitively, like, be aware or recognize the bugs because they're too thick. Because in the Holy Nation's mind, anything that is that thick cannot be acknowledged. And if they don't acknowledge their existence, well, they don't exist.
Now secretly implanted within the Holy Nation, we could begin training for the final solution. What? Is that one already?
Someone in my YouTube chat just said, do you have any pets? Yeah. I've got about 300 of them in my chat right now. And they're such good pets. All he's doing is told.
Hitler. Okay,
wait, sorry. What was that?
Final solution. 255 sleeper agents now secretly implanted within the Holy Nation. We could begin training for the final solution.
You can't just put a Hitler reference in your video. Oh my god.
What? Is that one already taken? Hitler. Okay, we're just going to call it the big attack. I converted some of the bars into training spaces, so...
Could you imagine how funny, well, lest we joke about World War II, but could you imagine how many more comedies would have been written in modern time to parody World War II if all of Hitler's grand plans were named after some really basic bitch name like The Big Attack, The Long Dive, Swallowed Whole? Yeah. World War II would have had way less dramas made about it, that's for certain.
We could muscle up some of these
D-Day,
losers.
more like
I had never attempted a coup d'etat
blowy
before,
day.
so I wasn't exactly sure how much preparation was necessary. I settled on combat stats around 20 to 30 as my end goal for training. Additionally, I created several private Hiver workshops throughout the city to manufacture weapons and armor for our soldiers. We even had a cafeteria. At this point, we basically had our own underground city operating behind a series of locked doors and secret handshakes. With our Hivers now preparing for the day of reckoning, we could begin sabotaging the Holy Nation and weakening it from within.
Why are they so caked up, though? It's not that.
You see, many scholars cite a degradation of morals and values as the driving force behind the collapse of the Roman Empire. I wanted to apply this concept to the Holy Nation. Certainly, creating a populace of unemployed transients was a good...
If we think about it, right? Reggie puts this much effort into a shitposty uprising. If Reggie put even 5% of the energy that he puts into these videos into benefiting the world, we would have probably solved world hunger by now.
Good start, but I think we can go even further. If you recall, I purchased every store in the entire city. That meant there was no one to sell food to the citizens. Don't worry, we can fix that. Every night, I would have my Hivers kidnap between 2 to 4 guards or citizens from the town and transport them to one of my many apartments, where their bodies would be mechanically separated while my secret society...
He's a genius. He's actually doing the most stealth uprising ever.
...of Hivers watched on intently. Their limbs were then processed...
It's not cannibalism. It's not a Geneva Convention violation if no one catches you. Ask the Germans from World War II.
...processed into raw human meat. And I opened my very own deli in the corner of town where I sold this meat to the local townspeople. Everyone in town was now a surprise cannibal. Try passing judgment on me now, you sick fucks. For the cherry on top, I also had Mutombo travel to the swamps to purchase large quantities of opium and cocaine. On the nights we weren't kidnapping...
Yeah, now this is definitely the part where I'm realizing this entire video is just an allegory for being America.
Street urchins and processing them into chicken nuggets, we would sneak up on people, knock them out, and plant cocaine and opium in their inventory, thereby getting them addicted to an expensive and highly illegal drug. For example,
my God.
I found this priest here.
This is
who
why
was
I would
asleep,
never be able to play a game like this.
8 kilograms
I would
of
never be
opium
able to come
in
up with
his
this level of
inventory.
ingeniousness.
That's enough opium to kill 100,000 people. I don't think this guy's gonna wake up. Now, we definitely...
I mean, he may not wake up, but he's gonna have the best goddamn dream of his life. You know the drug from the new Dread movie? Drop, I think it's called? The one that, like, slows down your perception of time? Yeah, that man had 1 second left to live, but that 1 second felt like 10 years.
He had the moral high ground on them at this point. After all, these people were literally homeless, unemployed, racist, cannibalistic drug addicts.
America.
So, yeah. I finally felt as though the Holy Nation was at its most vulnerable, and we were ready to activate our sleeper agents for a full-scale assault on Blister Hill.
So
I began the assault by launching a distraction. You see, one of my apartments in the far corner of town has been filled with albino gorillos that I imported.
That's not a nice thing to call chat's mum. What the hell?
From the nearby region.
Reggie, I could accept the violations of the Geneva Convention. I could violate the ethical conundrums. But what I cannot tolerate is you bringing up chat's mum like that. Absolutely diabolical.
Mutombo released them into the streets, thus drawing the guards' attention away from our next step. If you remember, sleeper cells are typically activated by a prearranged signal or code phrase. So I
swear to God, this better not be some obscene like, "My name's Jeff."
Mutombo climbed to the highest peak in the city and screamed this activation phrase at the top of his lungs.
This thing.
Okay, that's better. That's way better. That is a way better activation phrase than "My name Jeff."
is 300 bucks.
Whoa, only 300
bucks?
I charge 400
my 255
normally.
Hivers that now was the time to strike. This was the horror that awaited each and every one of these xenophobic freaks in the Holy Nation. Of course, some tried to escape, but little did they know, I had already created a 300-mile-long wall around the entire...
Wall Rosa, is that you? And you're just gonna gloss over the fact you built this wall? How? I mean, I suppose you got a captive audience.
Entire city, ensuring that none would escape alive. Combat broke out in the streets,
we're kind
and
of
countless
glossing
were
over
dead
how you
within
made
the first
that wall,
hour
but
of
okay.
the assault. This was a great start, but the real metric for success was sitting in this house right here. Lord Phoenix, the leader of...
He looks like the kind of guy that's gonna stand up and start going, Ka-me. Now, he wouldn't actually cast it, but you would absolutely not want to engage in combat with him, because the chance of him actually casting a Kamehameha is so astronomically low, but it's not zero. And are you willing to take the chance of being on the receiving end of a Kamehameha? It's not obtrusion, it's not avoidance of combat due to power. It's just the threat. It's like a nuclear deterrent, if you will. You don't know if he's actually got a Kamehameha in his sleeves, But are you willing to take that chance?
The entire holy nation. If we could take him down, surely the morale of the remaining guards would shatter. I sent 3 of my best bugs to fight him, and they're dead. I sent 100 of my best bugs to fight him, and I'm not going to lie, it was actually pretty competitive.
So being a racist makes you all-powerful? That's crazy.
Phoenix is very tough, but eventually we managed to slowly whittle him down to a point of unconsciousness, at which point we stripped him naked, put him in a cage, and beat all of his friends into submission. And with that, victory was ours.
Successful.
Some fighting persisted throughout the day, but it was clear our sleeper cell had successfully overthrown a corrupt and politically incorrect government. Without a doubt, justice was served on this day. The only thing left to do was to rebuild. We had at our hands a rare opportunity to learn from the mistakes of our forebearers and build a better.
This is Reggie. He's going to be worse than the people he took over, isn't he? Oh yeah, well, the Holy Nation were racists. But now we're going to be mega racist.
And more accepting society. The only rule? No humans allowed. Sorry, Mutombo. I hope you enjoyed this challenge because I plan to do more like...
What an absolute pointless video! What an absolute waste of my time! God damn it, we ended up right back where we started. Friggin' Reggie!
Make it in the future. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Oh my god, well, that, as much of a waste of my time as it was, it's not about whether the message was important, it's about the experience we had watching it. And I, for one, came out with 5 more tisms than I went in with. So I'd say that's a net benefit. So thank you much, Reggie, for this. Make sure to go subscribe to Reggie, join my Twitch streams, all that kind of good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!